So, hello and welcome everyone, all those attending here in person and those joining us online. I'm Ayisha Piotti, the host for today's session entitled Beyond Human and Machine Intelligence. A few housekeeping remarks before we start. You can contribute to the conversation on social media following hashtag GESDA Summit, and you can find the full program, speaker bios and session details in the GESDA Summit app. I also understand that this is the last session of the day, and the good news is that right after we finish, all of you are invited to a cocktail in the Globe. This session is going to last 30 minutes. We will have an initial discussion, and then we're going to open the floor for questions. So please listen in and jot them down. We will have a few questions certainly from you. So now moving on to our discussion, as you know, we are living through a moment when knowledge is increasingly being generated by systems that even the creators don't fully understand. Machines are finding patterns, making discoveries, and offering insights that often go beyond our ability to explain them, and that raises many, many questions. One of those is how we should live with and use these machines that we can't fully comprehend. And of course, how do we build trust in these systems? So I'm joined by two great experts who will help us explore these questions from very different yet complementary angles. Herman Cappelen is Professor of Philosophy at the University of Hong Kong and one of today's leading voices in the philosophy of language and epistemology. That is, how we come to know and understand things. His recent work explores whether humans and AI can ever share concepts or meanings, and what it means when machines generate ideas that might be completely alien to human thought. Matthias is a technical fellow and corporate vice president at Microsoft Quantum, where he leads the work at the frontier of quantum computing, building machines that literally operate beyond classical understanding. His research asks how we can verify, test, and trust results that emerge from systems whose inner workings we can't directly observe. So, welcome to both of you. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us. Now, to kick off the discussion, I'm going to really ask both of you a very simple and basic question. We have seen so many innovations in the past. Is there anything really different now with what we are seeing with these new technologies, AI, quantum? Maybe Herman, you can start.
Okay, yeah, it's a great question to be thinking about, and I think I'm in a minority in that I think from a certain perspective, it's not radically different, at least not with respect to the fact that it's something we don't understand or that it's something that's massively smarter than us. I find myself always being less smart than a lot of people about anything. So when it comes to quantum computing, I don't understand any of it. So there's always people in any field that knows more than me. So this is just another layer of that, as far as I can tell. This is machines that will do things, hopefully useful things, that we don't fully understand. And throughout human history, I think it's important to remember that we've been using inventions. We've been given knowledge from previous generations that we really didn't understand very well at all. I mean, all of us use paracetamol. No one knows how it works. Throughout human history, few things are as important as fire. Mm-hmm. No one understood what fire was. We were using it. We were regulating it. We were controlling it. We were building regulations around it. The theories we had about it were all false. I mean, now we know what it is, but for a very long time, we didn't know what it was. So I think it's with respect to there being subjects that now have knowledge far beyond anything that we can comprehend, I think that just puts us in a situation we've been in for a very long time. So I don't see it as radically new, and I think that's important for these issues of trust as well, But maybe we should get to that a little bit later. I'd love to hear what you think about this.
Now, what about yourself?
Thank you. So I think this is a transformative point in time, because we have found a new transformative technology, a general purpose technology, like the steam engine was that led to the industrial revolution, like electricity, computers that then led to the second and the third industrial revolution. We have new tools now. We don't yet know all they can do, and we have to find out and learn what they can do. What is new, though, is that in the past, when we built tools that the human mind built for a certain purpose. We had at least some people in the world who understood how it worked. And when we built the steam engine, it replaced human labor. That was a threat already back then. Then the computers could calculate faster than humans, but it was all mechanical things in some way. Now we face the technology that starts doing things that we thought as typically human things, reasoning, knowledge. So in that leads to questions. So I would love to listen to this panel and learn about it. So what now we have to think through is kind of how can we use this? What is really the use we can put it to? How can we embrace it? How can we do it in a safe way? But fundamentally, yeah, that's a great new invention where we have to see where it takes us.
Yeah. So basically, what I hear is a little bit of a, difference of view. So as far as Herman's concerned, it's pretty much the same as what we're living with. What you're saying is there is fundamentally something slightly different. So the question then becomes, and of course I think I can say that when you go and read about this, it's also the same. Some people think, well, it's the same old, and it's nothing new. We can work with this. And some think, no, this is so transformative. So the next question becomes right, should we be really looking at how we are using? You talk about use, right? Should we be defining something like that? Is that the way we should be going? And if so, who should be looking at that? So, Herman, would you maybe say something on that?
Yeah, so you mean the how it should be used and how it should not be used and how it should be regulated?
Yeah, perhaps, yeah, why not?
Okay. Yeah, so just to be clear, so I agree with you. It's radically different, of course, from paracetamol or fire in that it's general use. We have no clear understanding of all the different ways in which it's going to transform the way we live and the way we live together. I think the way in which it's not radically different is in the terms of its epistemic status, its knowledge status. We're used to being creatures that don't fully understand the inventions we have, the tools we have, and so on. So I think the interesting question about use is the fact that we don't understand it fully, should that restrict the way in which we're using it? Mm-hmm. And so I think the sort of thing to be thinking about is if you have a system that figures out how to cure cancer, so maybe these systems really deliver what people like Demis Hassabis tells us, in 5 years, it'll give us a cure for cancer. But we don't understand the solution. It just tells us to do something, but we don't understand the underlying reasoning or why is that. Is that going to be a problem for us? That's the sort of thing where I think a lot of people think, well, it's really important to have an underlying explanation, that it's some sort of interpretable process where we can get an underlying reasoning. And here I think that this is sort of connected to what I was saying initially. I think I'm in a minority. I don't feel this deep need for an underlying explanation. I'm not sure that it's so important. I think we're pretty used to using tools that we don't fully understand. So as long as it's working and doing good things for us, and of course, that's a very complicated set of issues. What is going to be the good use cases and the bad? But if we just focus on the good ones, is the fact that it's generated by kind of alien intelligence that might compute in complexity levels we just will never be able to do with our tiny brains. Is that a problem? And my sense is I don't think so. Because it's a situation we've already been in throughout human history.
And I think you were mentioning that as well, that human brain, we don't know how it works, but that's something we can essentially live with. And
yeah, I like thinking about the human brain. We love to trust the human brain, and we trust people who say things like we do now. And it's all generated by this thing, the brain, but we've never understood how it works. We still don't understand how it works, but we rely on it absolutely all the time. So it's a little bit parallel to that. Now, of course, as you said, it's going to be much more powerful. It's going to have all kinds of consequences. But just in terms of its lack of or capacity to understand, I think we're in a situation that's fairly familiar.
Matthias, anything to add there?
Yeah, so deep down, we know exactly how it works. It's zeros and ones in a computer, and we multiply matrices, and that gives us some answers. Just like we know the brain works based on quantum physics and all, but what's more important is actually what is the emergent use? What can we do with it? And how do we use this technology in a responsible way? We don't yet know all that they can do. We are finding new things every month. First it was text, then pictures, images, videos, computer programs, everything. We learn more and more we can do with it. And so if we focus on what that is, then this is a new technology that empowers humans to create new tools. That leads to now not just the 10 million, but near 10 billion people who are programmers, who can build new tools. And I think that's a step change in what we can do with it. With that, it becomes important for us to think about how do we do it in a responsible way? How do we do it in a safe way? And for me, it always has to be that it empowers the human. It lets the human do more, create more. Let the human accelerate their passions, accelerate progress. And it will always, for me, be... So it might be agent operated, the AI get agencies, they do things, but it will always be human-led. It always needs the human passion behind it, the human leadership. And I think that's what is for me more important. How can it empower humans?
So what I'm hearing is that we don't necessarily need to go for explanations, which is also sometimes in policymakers, like we need to have an explanation of how this works. That's less important. But how we are using it, what we are using it for, would you agree, Herman, that that's something we do need to look at and try to define? Because today, if we just leave it, from what I'm hearing here, is that it could be used in a good way, but there are also possibilities for it to be used in other ways. And maybe that's something we need to look at. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the way I think about it, still at a certain level, this is very familiar. So electricity could be used for good things, and it could be used to give people electroshocks when you torture them, and it could be used to give us lights and sound and all kinds of good things. So electricity turned out to have all kinds of really good uses and all kinds of really bad uses, and we've spent a very long time trying to distinguish the good parts and the bad parts. So in terms of just sort of figuring out how a general tool can be used in good ways and bad ways, it's not an entirely unfamiliar kind of thing. And the same thing with our vehicles, with airplanes, with guns. They can be used for good things and bad things. So it's not an entirely unfamiliar situation we're in. I don't think that's radical. I do think what you were touching on at the end is radical. It is when they turn from being tools to being autonomous agents. And so if they're autonomous agents and they're not tools anymore, and we don't have that kind of control, then we've created something that could potentially start using us as tools or using each other as tools. And then I think we're in a totally new domain and territory.
But we are quite close to that, aren't we? I mean, we're talking about agents all over. I mean, I don't know, Matthias, if you have something to add there, but my understanding is there's discussions on that anyways now, and there's quite advanced technology that is giving agency to these tools.
So, but and I like what you mentioned on the electricity. When that came up, the big discussion of the year was how does one make products that are safe? And there were big discussions, debate, should you use DC current, AC current, what is safer? How does one build systems that are safe? How does one regulate it? And so we have to find a way to build it responsibly, build it in a safe way, and build that into the AI systems we build. It has to be an integral part of the architecture that we control how they act. We can't understand the details of how they think or do things, but we have to make sure that when we build it, how it acts, the outputs, the actions that the agents might do are controlled. And we need to find the right principle for that. We need to find out how to build it in a safe way. But that has to be part of it, and that is essential for people having trust in it.
So now I move into like something very concrete. So how? So the fact, what I'm saying is, one is about we're going to make sure that we build them in a safe way. The other is we want to make sure that we use them in a safe way. And the next question would be, what would be your sort of view on how do we achieve that? Do we achieve that through regulation, through policy, through discussions, through defining red lines? Like, we had Dolly the sheep, and at some point we said, as humankind, we are not going to, clone ourselves. Do we need something like that? What is your view? Each one of you.
You go first.
Yes, I think we clearly need that, or who would trust the AI systems that others build? We need regulations in every country, in every region, but we need them to be globally interoperable. Herman lives in Hong Kong, in China, I'm in the US. If we don't come to getting a governance for AI that's global, that lets us have trust in each other's products, then it's hard to ship products outside of one's region. And so we need this global consensus, global principles around what is responsible AI and how do we build all our products, all the things we've built with these principles and guidelines baked in. Without that, I wouldn't trust an autonomous agent that just flies around. I mean,
well, essentially, yeah, of course. If you don't have trust, you won't have adoption. Yeah. What about preparation, Herman? Should we be? One is, of course, you can go the path of policy regulation, but the other is, I think there needs to be. Do we need to build some knowledge? Do we need to work on certain, us as humans? What would be your suggestion there in terms of preparation, in terms of skills, in terms of anything else that we need to do?
I think just initially pick up on the thought that we need global cooperation. So I live in Hong Kong in China, and one thing I notice as an absolutely insane feature of the contemporary situation is that people in China just can't even talk to or travel to or engage with people in the US and to some extent Europe. And if there's one country where these regulations are not in place, and especially if it's some huge part of the world, it's just pointless to have it in other parts. So I think that kind of cooperation is absolutely crucial. I should say, though, that I'm pretty much a pessimist about how far this is going to go with regulations. I think there's going to be systems that are generated no matter what. I think we're on a path where there will be rogue AI agents. I think the probability of that is incredibly high. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's much we can do about ourselves that's really going to help. I think our best bet is probably to have other AIs, guide us and protect us against the bad AIs. And so we're going to have a kind of race where they're getting, and I think the probability that that's going to go wrong at some point is sort of the thing that determines your P-doom. And I think it should be reasonably high. I think we'll probably survive, but
let's hope so.
About future generations.
So using AI to basically keep AI in check. That's what you're saying. And I think that's kind of the solution many are talking about in many of the other aspects as well. What about you? Then we'll open to questions.
That's the only way, because we will see increasing cyber attacks driven by AI, and we fight it with AI, and we just have to stay ahead and be better in fighting it. But we also have to, with all of that, rethink how do people do their work. We have to rethink education. I was asked once recently, how do we stop students from cheating with ChatGPT? And my answer was, no, we have to change how we teach, how we educate. We have to rethink all the things we do, but especially how do we share the knowledge globally, empower people everywhere, and how do we educate? I think there are many questions here that I'd like to ask you to.
So let's open. That's a great segment to open the floor now to questions. Does anybody have any questions here? Take one there, two. You can start. Just please state your name and just keep it short. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Meg Girardi. I am a high school student at the International School of Lausanne. So I feel like as humans, what makes us so unique as a species is our curiosity and our strive to know more. However, with the possibility that the new knowledge and we acquire and the technology we create could be the end of our species, do we have a moral and ethical obligation to have a boundary, a point where we stop, where there's no more discovery, no more advancements? Because while curiosity and progress is very much a blessing, as we have seen throughout history with stories such as Pandora's Box, it can also be a curse.
Should we have a limit? To
progress? Should we have, at some point, we said, no, look, this is very good to be curious and all that, but now we've got to stop because we're going into a territory that doesn't.
I just think the train has already got that. That's not an option. If you're thinking about stopping the AIs from exploring, I think that's just not going to happen. Stopping human curiosity, I don't see that as happening. So I think we're just beyond the possibility of any kind of limitation on it. That's my take on that.
Yeah. So human passion, curiosity will always be there. What we need are guidelines or principles, maybe red lines of what behavior is acceptable. If we stop it, the bad actors will not stop. The bad actors will innovate, and then it gets worse.
I should say I do have a colleague in Hong Kong whose view, he's so confident that AI will destroy humanity. He's a full professor. He thinks we should completely stop teaching computer science. We should burn and make inaccessible all textbooks and anything that would make it possible for future generations to make AI. So that is a strategy actually to implement what you're thinking about. Just really go back a few centuries and just stay there. That's the only way.
The cat is out of the bag already, right? We'll take another question. Here. Anybody else as well?
Thank you very much for the inspiring conversations. Andre Villarreal. I'm thinking about the multimodality that we see in modern AI, where we're combining different kinds of inputs and discovering that they compound onto new capabilities that we'd not expect. So this could continue on and on and on and growing into a multi-compounded, multimodal model. Likewise, I feel like we talk about agents as if there's one guy doing one thing. But when we have 1 trillion guys doing things in parallel, competing with one another, collaborating with others, these kinds of very complex systems, I'm not hearing we're having conversations around policing or architecting as engineers. I'm myself an engineer, and I feel like we should go way beyond the boundaries of machine and human intelligence to actually really talk about these new possibilities and how we manage that, how to govern that.
I love that question, because I think one of the big problems is the way we've been everyone talks, but including us right now, we just talk about AI like we know what it is. And we think of it as this little thing that we can talk to and we get an answer. But I think the future of this is going to be systems that we don't even have terminology for talking about. They're spread out, billions, millions of subsystems. There's no subject there that corresponds to anything like a human agent. And we just don't even have the terminology for talking about it or for thinking about how we should react to it, how to hold it responsible, how to control it, because we don't know what it is. I edited this book series for Cambridge University Press, and 2 researchers for Google are writing the first book in it. And half of that book is all about, well, what is the AI? What is the subject? Is it the foundation model? Is it the mathematical structure? Is it all the different servers that it's spread around on? Is it the context window? There's so many things there, and we don't even have a framework for thinking about it. And it's a kind of classical philosophical questions. As a philosopher, I feel very happy when people discover that problem. It's about how to individuate, basically the metaphysics of AI. It's a great thing to be thinking about, and it's something we should be developing a language for talking about that we just don't have yet.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something? No? Another question here.
Scott Phillips, Vault Adventures. I'm a legal technologist, and I'm deeply interested in the question of how cryptography and the law can come together. This is the point at which I position myself. And do you think that the law has a role to play here, and in particular with an emphasis and a focus on the big technology companies and social media platforms? I suspect they have a role to play in this. What do you think?
So short answers, because we don't have so much time.
Yes, we need regulation. We need to come to principles to regulate it, to make it safe. And that's where we need then global standards around that. And so we need laws and global standards on that for sure. But we need more than that, because no law will ever solve any situation. What about gray zones we're going to encounter? What about things that they're not governed by law? Kind of what is really the right reaction of these systems? Those are the questions we have to ask.
Mm-hmm. We have time for just maybe one last question, or sort of, yeah, one very quick. You have a few seconds. Go on.
Thank you, Samuel Mortimer. People don't generally think about nuclear weapons, that, you know, there's a risk of bad guys having nuclear weapons. We need to give better nuclear weapons to the good guys. That's not how we do things. So should we think about regulating AI or dealing with AI in the way we think about anti-nuclear proliferation treaties or things like that?
Should we go about it like we do in nuclear? That's a...
Yeah, okay, so that is a deep question here. And it leads to kind of, if we want to build the systems with controls and safeguards built in, then one question becomes is, and it goes back to the first question, understanding. Do we make things safe by understanding it, how it works? Do we make things safe by making it open? So what we have to think about here is kind of, how can we keep it safe? How do we make it, how do we establish trust? And when you mention nuclear weapons. Yeah. What I say when people say we make it safe by open sourcing everything, I say, do we keep the world safe from nuclear weapons by open sourcing the blueprint for making them? It's likely not the right approach, because just looking at the source code will not help with understanding and with the safeguarding. So we need principles, maybe like for nuclear power. So then that's what the scientists, together with the diplomats at the UN, can find the right frameworks for that.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're running out of time, so thanks a lot. I think we could continue, and we could have continued, but I'm sorry. I think over drinks, exactly. That's how it's going to be. So thank you to the two wonderful panelists.